because it's about, the beginning of it anyway, is on the Sea of Galilee. The first time these guys that we grow to know as the disciples are going across the Sea of Galilee with Jesus. So, this story is in Mark chapter 4 and 5. And we're going to go into that. And this, Jesus has been teaching, and the disciples have not been, they're not really his disciples yet. They are with him, and they think he's something special, but they don't know yet exactly everything about him that they need to know. And in Mark chapter 4, we begin to see, we begin the story there that on this particular day, when evening came, Jesus said to them, "Let us go over to the other side." That means the other side of the lake. And leaving the crowd, they took him along with them in the boat, just as he was, and other boats were with him. Now you guys know what happened. A storm blew up on the Sea of Galilee, which is not unusual for the Sea of Galilee. And it wouldn't have been, the storm occurring wouldn't have taken these guys by surprise necessarily, because they spent a lot of time on the Sea of Galilee. And a storm blows up, and again, now the last story I told you actually happened after this one. But, I mean, this was not a little crazy storm with the waves kind of going, go back to the other one, yeah. With the waves just kind of rocking. I mean, this was a violent storm that they're enduring. And, and the boat's rocking back and forth, and they're trying to get things handled and take care of everything. Jesus is up in front of the boat, and the wind's blowing. Like that. And they run up in front of the boat, and they're yelling, holding the wind, and from excitement, "Master, don't you care that we're dying here?" See, like this next one, is that Jesus raising his hand and he just says, "Hush, be still." And the storm comes. Now, we don't know exactly how long that storm went on, but it was long enough that Jesus was asleep, and it was long enough that the disciples, these fishermen, got nervous and thought they were going to die. So it was a while, and then it just calms. The sea calms, the wind dies down, and it gets very still. And remember, they don't have the headlights on the boat. All they can see by is now maybe the moon that shines if the clouds are gone. And they begin to talk amongst themselves. And what they're saying is, "God is this? Have you ever seen anything like that in your life?" And they're still, going across to the other side of the lake, and it's calm, and when you hear the sound of the water, and you hear the sound of the oars, and they're talking, not knowing, and then off in the distance, they begin to hear Peter especially interesting, looks at the other one and goes, "Did you hear that?" And they said, "Hear what?" And they hear it again. Peter said, "You heard it this time, didn't you?" Yeah, kind of weird. Because remember, it's dark. And they hear that echoing across the water. And they're getting closer. And Jesus is standing up in front of the boat looking at the shoreline, getting closer and closer, and that sound is getting closer and closer. And Peter starts suggesting maybe we should go another direction. Maybe over here. I see some lights of a town. Somebody's still awake over here. Let's go that way. Not this way toward that sound. And Jesus just says, go ahead, let's keep going. Keep going. And Peter and the other disciples are getting more and more tense again. Now remember, their nerves are already on edge because they've been through this storm and thought they were going to die. And in just a few minutes, things were calm. And now there's this odd, eerie noise coming across the water. And whoosh, up on the sand, the boat comes. And Jesus hops out of the boat and begins to walk up the beach, and he sees this. Jesus got out of the boat. The disciples never said they got out. They're at the back of the boat, watching this from as far away as they can get in the boat. And so this guy, we'll call him Harry. Now the reason I'm going to call him Harry is because he was probably hairy. He was demon possessed, and he lived in the graveyard among the tombs. That's where he lived. He wasn't homeless. He had a home, it's just in the graveyard. And he was, the demons were so strong in him that they couldn't bind him. He broke the chains, and the chains are rattling, everything. And you just imagine any haunted house you've ever been to, and they've got chains rattling off in the dark. And just imagine that's how the disciples felt. That's what they heard. And they heard this guy screaming coming down, they heard Harry screaming coming down the beach there toward Jesus. And they don't know what's going to happen. I mean, they just saw this guy calm a storm, and here's this guy with hair all over him, and he's dirty, and his teeth are bad, and you know he smells bad and looks bad, and he's got that wild look in his eyes. And they're in the boat, in the back of the boat, talking about it, saying, what is he going to do? Why are we here? Can we leave? Do you think it would be bad if we just got back, we just kind of pushed off and went back out in the lake? Because they were human. They would have thought and said the same things we would have. They weren't superhuman or super spiritual for that matter. At least not at this point. And so Harry has been living out in these tombs, and nobody from the town will come see him. They don't want anything to do with him. He's been eating something out there because they're not feeding him. So he's living out in the wild. He's not worried about cooking it. So the smell just gets worse, doesn't it? When you think about it. About him, his hair is all matted and growing out, and his fingernails are long, and he's got these chains, and he's got cuts all over him. And the disciples are sitting there watching him. And he says,
"What do I have to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Do not torment me, I beg you."
But the disciples hear this. They're still in the boat. And so then Jesus says, "What is your name?"
"My name is Legion, for we are many."
There are many of these demons inside this man. And they don't want to be driven out of the country. I don't know what it was about that country, but they didn't want to leave it. Now, in that country, in that particular area, My dad used to say that it was about as respectable for a Jewish man to be a pig herder as it was for a Baptist deacon to be a bartender. But this area had a bunch of swine, and they had people out there watching them. And so the disciples are seeing Jesus, and they're seeing him interact with this wild man, and they're hearing the demon's voice, and the demon says, they asked for permission to go into the swine. Now, back in the boat, Peter, Andrew, James, and John standing, looking at this situation. Andrew looks at Peter and says, you going to get out now? Peter, no, I'm not getting out. You getting out? Andrew says, I'm not getting out. James, you're getting out. James, I'm not getting out. John, you get John, I'm not getting out. Jesus gives the permission of the demons to go into the swine, and the swine lose their minds and take off running. And the disciples are watching that. Andrew says, you sure you're getting out? And Peter says, when pigs fly. About that time, over their head, the cliff, comes 2,000 pigs flying through the air into the lake. Andrew looks at Peter and goes, well, there you go. Peter never thought that would happen. He didn't think that would happen. So, what happens is the pigs fly off into the lake. The disciples are still watching this. Jesus has exorcised these demons from this legion of demons from this guy. And everything should be right with the world. Except the guys that were herding the pigs run into town and gather up the people and say, you got to come see what's going on. They get back out there and they see Harry sitting down with clothes on, talking to Jesus calmly, and it scares them to death. This crowd has so much fear, they don't know what to do. Except they tell Jesus to leave. Please leave our place. Don't stay here. Don't come back here. Go away. They began to implore him to leave their region. Now, Harry, remember Harry? Harry looks at Jesus and gets down on his knee and says, please take me with you. Now, Peter, still in the boat, has got to be going, no. Let's just leave him here, okay? That'll be fine. The boat's pretty crowded as it is. We've got a good number here. We don't need any more. And Jesus says, no, what I want you to do is I want you to go to your home and tell everybody what great things the Lord has done for you and how he had mercy on you. So that's what he did. Now the reason for this story is this. Look at Mark chapter 8. This was in Mark chapter 5. 3 chapters over, however long that lasted. The Bible, this chapter begins, in those days when there was again a large crowd and they had nothing to eat. Drop down to verse 9, about 4,000 were there. This is why this story is interesting. This incident of Jesus feeding these 4,000 happened in this man's hometown. Remember the people that came and said, "We need you to leave, Jesus"? 3 chapters later, when he comes back, 4,000 people come out to see him. Now, why did they do that? Because Herod, one person, went back into his town and told them what Jesus had done for him. That, my friends, is the power of one. When you don't think that you can have an impact, when your past is so bad that you're ashamed of it, when you tell people what God has done for you, and you live the kind of life that indicates he's done that for you, your impact is unbelievable. The power of one.